Hi, everybody. I just wanted to welcome you all to Save Circle for May. My name is Joy Webb. I am the engagement manager for Southern Black Women and Girls Consortium. And we are honored and excited to bring different topics every month for Black women as we are stronger together and we learn and grow together. And in this Sage Circle, we are happy to have Natasha A. Harris, who will talk a little bit about our timeline. There's a question on the front of the page right now, on the front of the screen, it says, what made you laugh out loud this week? Please put that in the actual chat. That would be great. But Natasha has a wealth of knowledge. And I want her to be able to, share more about herself and all of the great things that she does. She is actually covering a topic that is near and dear to her. And I think that it will be important for us, as it's something that we don't often look at. Sometimes we avoid, but it is necessary because, life be lifing, and there is a whole cycle and circle about it. So today I am going to turn it over to Natasha A. Harrison and let her begin to talk about it. Thank you so much. Natasha's all yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually typing in what made me laugh out loud. And so my daughter, I wish I could share the video. My daughter had her performance award ceremony, and they were coming in on Neo, um, Champagne Life, and toss it up, whatever. And so she came in and was just bopping and walking like she was on a runway, just doing the most with her hips and her behind. I was like, who is this 8-year-old child? But it was hilarious. That video is on repeat in my mind right now. And I'm seeing that Dorothy and Cassandra chimed in about her. Cassandra chimed in about her granny, and Dorothy saw a funny video. So please feel free to share. All right. So welcome. Let me go here. Before I get started, I always like to start with a land acknowledgement. Land is something sacred to all of us, whether we consciously appreciate it or not. And so I currently live on the Muskogee Creek land, which is now called South Fulton, Georgia. That is the name of the city, South Fulton, Georgia, which has been labeled as the Blackest city in the nation. And I bring that up because Black folks and Indigenous people, right, we have a close relationship, a familiar relationship. Some of us are Indigenous to this land. And so just wanting us to invite everyone. On the screen is a QR code as well as a URL, the URL link to Native Land Digital, which is a co-created, co-designed space done by Indigenous people, primarily in North America, in the Americas, actually in the Americas, not just North America. And they just really strive to create and foster conversations about the history of colonialism, Indigenous ways of knowing, and settler Indigenous relations. And just really brings the real life experience, lived history of Indigenous people to their removal from their lands, the eradication of their history in our Western education. But I also want to just lift up here on our land, the Muskogee Creek people have always lived here, have been coming back, doing ceremony and ritual on their land. And they recently sent an order to the mayor, DeKalb County, and surrounding municipalities to remove them from their land, especially on land that is committing violence and harm to Black and Indigenous people, particularly around the development of Cop City. And they actually sent a notice to vacate, told them to get up off their land. So we must be in solidarity with them. Again, to learn more, please, again, go to this website, click on the the QR code. And if you were able to go to the website and put in your address, if you would, in a moment of just togetherness and acknowledgement, to please put the name of the land you currently live on from that website. And I'll just give us a moment. Okay. All right. Again, feel free to populate that as we move along in the agenda. And so today I'm going to be talking about healing our timelines, a conversation on planning for death. This is a moment to raise our consciousness about our dying and death, but then to also to help us in regards to our own fears, trepidations, but then also really as Black folks to really heal the real destruction, violence, and harm that has been committed due to white supremacy, and us being able to connect with our people, like knowing our people. I think that has to do with how we feel about death. And again, this is just an introduction, a starting conversation, and just hope that there are resources and tools that you want to grow from this session. A little, I think there's somebody that is not on mute. You could mute them. Thank you. That would be helpful. Thank you. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Natasha A. Harrison. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am an Atlanta native. Did spend a great deal of time advancing my career and community in Washington, D.C. I started my career, I will say, in IT, but then was like, yeah, I don't like this culture early on, and transitioned to becoming an AmeriCorps member, focused on reducing child protective service cases, and working in a residential home for girls. And fast forward, again, as I shared, was in DC. I worked as a funder for a youth development organization, and also worked in the mayor's office on volunteerism, working with AmeriCorps sites. And then from there, I started my company, Community Build Ventures. We are a pro-Black firm committed to eliminating racial disparities by developing powerful, impactful, and racial equity-driven leaders and organizations. And while when I started Community Build Ventures, I also was introduced to the world of giving circles through the African American Women's Giving Circle in DC, which led me to Joy. I learned about Community Investment Network, joined Circle of Joy, and then I started my own giving circle for her. It's a Black women giving movement for Black girls here in Metro Atlanta, focused on the issue of sexual exploitation. And that's how I got connected with Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. I'm a core movement partner. I also served as consultant for the consortium in helping to define the early stages, strategy, and structure for it. So grateful to continue to see this work grow and be a part of it. And recently I was selected as a champion for equity by the Center for Civic Innovation here in Atlanta. And then most importantly for our conversation today, I have been on a journey as a death doula. I have been sitting with people who are dying. I have been having conversations with people that are in preparation, immediate preparation for their loved ones who are dying. I've been certified as a death doula. And so how I show up in that work is I really want to help Black folks heal the fear around death and heal our timelines, because it's very unnatural for our people to have such terror around death. It is part of the natural cycle of life. But I believe the trauma that we've experienced on this land hasn't healed, hasn't been acknowledged. And I think that's why the terror and the feelings around death are ever present with us. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And so for today, the intentions, I really want us to learn together in ways that inspire deep listening and reflection, engage with greater authenticity and curiosity. And I'm going to introduce some key concepts to begin to help you contemplate and plan for end of life. So our agenda, we always start with brace-based building. We'll start with feelings, gratitude, and intentions as part of brace-based building. I'm going to talk a little bit about white supremacy and death and the fear rooted in that. And then I'm going to provide some support for alleviating the fear of death. And then we'll wrap up and, get your feedback or any questions that you may have. All right, so at Community Build Ventures, we do this trademark process called brace-based building. And we believe it's a way to help people center curiosity and authenticity, but really center us as human beings in the space as not like, get right to work, right? Get an output. Let's, but really it's about us coming together to create a community practice where we center our humanness versus our production. And so we always start with feelings, gratitude, and intentions. And so, this is us creating a container that's different from what the rest of the world is offering. And so feelings, gratitude, gratitude just really opens us up for hope and curiosity, and centers a place of empathy. Feelings really, again, helping you to kind of locate where you are and what is informing those feelings. And intentions. And so intentions really is about you sharing the values that you're living, that you are aspiring to achieve. And that could be what you want to get out of the session, but also how you are wanting to show up in space. So what we'll do is just have a moment, and you can share this in the chat. What are you grateful for at this moment? How are you feeling? And what are your intentions? So I'm going to give us about a minute to center those questions, to think about them, and begin to respond in the chat. I will model out loud sharing that. We typically end with I am complete, or I'm finished, or I'm done, so that people know that you have shared what you wanted to share. And then also, again, what are you grateful for? How are you feeling? And what are your intentions? If you're having, difficulty trying to locate how you're feeling, here is Dr. Gloria Wilcox feelings wheel. These are not all the feelings in the world, but help you begin to locate where you are. So I'm going to give us about a minute. Again, what are you grateful for? What are your intentions? And how are you feeling? right, that was 1 minute. Thank you so much for those that have already started to populate the chat. Thank you, Cassandra, Angela, Deborah, Chansey. Am I saying that correct? Am I saying that right?
It's Chauncey.
Chauncey, look, I need to put an accent on that. Chauncey.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let
I
me
have
put an accent on it. Shoot.
Chauncey. Yep, I wrote that down. Thank you so much. I'm feeling very grateful, and I'm feeling very supported. I am grateful for the weather and to be home. I've been doing a lot of traveling over the past 2 weeks. So I'm just grateful to be in my house, to be home with my family. And my intentions are to be present, to listen, seek clarity, and to support the agenda. And thank you, Erica, for sharing. Also, thank you, Joy. Joy, you're Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. Is that you? Yes. No, you're on mute.
I am. I'm probably a little bit of.
Oh, okay. You in two places.
I am.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for sharing in this space and getting present for where you are now. All right. So to begin our conversation, I want to talk about white supremacy and death. Let me pull up my screen here, get my notes. Thank you. And so the thing about white supremacy, just that word, right? What is white supremacy? I am pretty sure just saying that word, like we all had some type of reaction or thoughts or things came up in your mind or you felt some strong feelings. And some of us even thought of like some characteristics. And so white supremacy is a political, economic, and cultural system in which whites overwhelmingly control power and material resources. Conscious and unconscious ideas of right superiority and entitlement are widespread. And relations of white dominance and non-white subordination are daily reenacted across a broad array of institutions and social settings. So all that's saying is white supremacy is a system, right? It is the foundation of our system, right? Everything that grows out of our foundation, the fruits of it is in support of white supremacy if we are not consciously trying to disrupt and dismantle it. And one of the things about white supremacy is that it is very rooted in fear. And it keeps us in a cycle, right? As I said, it's a political, economic, and cultural system that keeps us from seeing humanity. Hence why we always start with race-based building. And it also keeps us seeing humanity in Black, Indigenous people of color. It keeps us from harmonizing with each other. It must be maintained through trauma. So that we continue to have primal responses to fight, freeze, flee, or fawn. And there is no right to heal for Black, Indigenous people of color under white supremacy. And it really doesn't honor the fluidity of humanity, right? We're seeing this in real time in the call for genocide of trans people, right? And it does not do that, right? And so the thing about white supremacy is that because it fuels our capitalist system, like our capitalist system and white supremacy are connected and go hand in hand. And in our system, your value is placed on production, right? How much you produce, what you do, your title, like all of those things. But I want to say that everyone has eminent value in this space that we are creating here together. And so you were born, you have value, right? that's great. You did XYZ, but you have value as a human being. When you were born, you shifted, right? You shifted this world, right? You're existent. When you show up, something shows up, right? Those are the gifts and your spirit that are important for a community, right? And so I think that with white supremacy in regards to death, we have so much fear of it because it's wrapped in value, but particularly as Black folks, in which our bodies were literally used to develop this system of supremacy, white supremacy, and the fact that for a lot of us, we can't name our direct line ancestors. I think that has caused a great deal of trauma and fear for us, an additional amount of fear in us around death. And I want us to be able to heal from that experience. And so one of the things about there are four things that people typically talk about when they talk about the fear of death, right? So it's the process of the body, like, am I gonna, have pain? Am I gonna suffer? How long will it take? Am I gonna be a burden for someone? I want to make sure my end of life wishes are going to be handled. I don't know if they're gonna happen. Another fear is what if anything comes what if anything comes after death, right? This possibility of consciousness surviving, right? What is the experience of consciousness surviving? This idea of darkness, being, does love continue after death? So just all of these things of the unknown. And another fear is the fear of missing out after your death. Not being present for your loved ones. That's a real thing, right? Not seeing projects completed, leaving, our perpetual to-do lists, right, that we have. And then causing pain to those, that we love because we're not here, right? And then the fourth thing that some of us, in terms of the fear of death, is, just a fear of a life not fully lived, not accomplishing as much as we wanted to, dying alone, leaving a mess behind, right? Just this fear of that, leaving no worthwhile legacy. So just all of these things that that white supremacy in the way death is presented to us, it brings up typically these top four fears. Of course, there are probably more buckets, but just wanting to say that this is part of the absurd cycle that we're in the system that we live in, and how we have a relationship with death. And I want to bring forward ancestors like San Bonfu Some, who talks about people having spirits and being able to connect with ancestors, whether they are in your direct line or not. Thinking about ancestry also in terms of other living things like a plant that has gone on, is also spirits that we can call upon to help soothe us and support us around our fear. So I want to just pause there. I know I've talked for like 10 minutes. And so just want to just leave any space if anyone has any questions for me now. And I can't see you all anymore.
I haven't seen any questions pop up yet.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, for some reason, I don't see y'all anymore. I don't know what happened. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go on to the next one. It's quite all right. But again, feel free if you have questions to just share in the chat, or any thoughts that are coming up for you as I'm sharing. So now let's talk about the support for alleviating some of the fear for death, right? To begin to alleviate some of that fear. And so what I would want us to do first is to have a moment to contemplate contemplation of dying. So what I would like for everyone to do, if you're not already comfortable, I would love for you to get comfortable in a seat, or you may lay down. So and relax. You may turn your camera off as well. And what we're going to do is just to have a moment, a body scan, and a brief meditation on contemplation of dying. And again, this is to support alleviating some of the fear around death, and so that we can begin to heal the trauma around the terror that we may feel in regards to death. Okay. So if you are comfortably seated or lying down, I would like for us to first just take 3 big breaths together. So if we would all inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Now I would like for you to begin to scan your body. We're going to start with the top of our head. Begin to feel around the top of your head, moving down to your cheeks, your cheekbones, down to your jawline, your lips, your nose, your eyes. Just notice how you're feeling in those areas. And then drop down to your neck. And again, feel free if you want to touch this body part as we are scanning, to be real intentional of noticing the area of your body. We can drop down now to our shoulders, shoulder blades, down our arms, to our fingers. Gonna move to our chest, down to our bellies. Make sure you also notice what's happening in your back as you move down. Your genital area, pelvic area, your hips, your knees, calves, shins, down to your ankle, heel, feet, and toes. All right, let's all take a deep breath together. Inhale, exhale. And so while you are in your comfortable seated place, I'm going to share you a contemplation by a 11th century Buddhist scholar named Atisha. And this person offers a contemplation to help us settle our bodies around death. The first contemplation is death is inevitable. There is nothing you can do to stop it. As long as there's been human beings, there has been death. Again, to continue to sit in your comfortable seated chair or If you're lying on the floor, continue to notice your breath. The second contemplation is my lifespan is ever decreasing. We have finite time here on earth. The next one contemplation is death comes whether or not I am prepared. You do not prepare to die, like you do not have to prepare to die, right? It will happen. It is natural. My lifespan is not fixed, right? There is a lot of unknowns, right? When or how we will die. Death has many causes. Death has many causes. My body is fragile and vulnerable. You have a spirit that has a body, right? And the body is fragile and vulnerable. My material resources will be of no use to me. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can buy out of death, right? And so your resources will be of no use. My loved ones cannot save me. This is a natural part of life that will happen to all of us. And my own body cannot help me when death comes, right? So your body will do what is naturally meant to do. It will move through that process, and it's not going to be separate from the process of dying. And so if everyone now could take a deep breath, let's inhale together. Exhale. Now in the next breath, when we inhale, when we exhale, please let out any sound that just feels good for you to release. All right. Everyone together, if we inhale, exhale. Oh. Now I would like for you, if you have your eyes closed, if you could begin to flutter them open very slowly. Begin to stretch your body if you can. And then I want you to also just look around in your space. Again, this is a moment of safety. Just looking to your right and your left, behind you, in front of you, so that you can locate where you are. And so now I want to open the space for about 5 minutes for you to share as we went through those 9 contemplation of dying done by the 11th century Buddhist scholar Atisha. If anything came up for you as I was sharing these 9 contemplations, you can feel free to come on the mic or share in the chat.
Hi, I'm
Yes.
Cassandra.
Hi.
For me, number 4, my lifespan is not fixed because some get to be very old, some young. Like I'm grieving because my uncle was murdered, and he and I were the same age. So, like you said, his lifespan was not fixed, even though we thought we would grow old with him or whatever. So that kind of that one is I can relate to that one.
And what is your dear loved one's name that just died?
Willie Douglas Jr.
Willie Douglas Jr. Thank you. May he be safe now. May he be safe. Thank you for sharing, Cassandra. Anyone else would like to share what came up for them listening to the contemplation of dying, or even in your body scan? Anything your body is telling you at this time? And feel free, you can come on the unmute yourself, or you can share in the chat. I'm gonna leave the space open for 2 more minutes.
So I have one more thing to say.
Mhm.
Death is inevitable, and so like with, I guess people deal with death in so many different ways. And so like when my grandmother passed 2 years ago, she was in her 80s, and of course it was hard, but my mom always said, what, you thought they were never going to die? When it's like an older person. And so for me, like my close friend, she just lost a family member, and it's, you can't compare like grief and stuff, but it's like older, I guess it was just easier for me because my mom taught me that, because she like lost her mom when she was really, really young. And so um, she had to learn how to deal with death earlier. And so I kind of learned from her how to deal with death, and I'll keep going, and I think about the Bible, let the dead bury the dead. So, I try not to let it stop me. I do process the grief, but I just try not to let it, because sometimes, it can be paralyzing and it's
Mhm.
like you can't even breathe. But,
Mhm.
when I think about it, death is inevitable. True.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. And Deborah shared in the chat, weird, but I'm ready, not ready to die, but thankful for the life I've had so far. Thank you. Mhm, mhm. And that's, and you know what, Deborah, that was a good segue, because I don't know if you noticed, like that's going to show up in the next thing that I have to share, which is, now part of it is, right, I think grief is grief, right? There's great pain, right? You want that person there, right? I In my faith tradition and what I believe, the spirit doesn't die. I can still have a relationship with them. Not everybody's the same way, but that's how I relate to death. I still have grief, but I believe that if we begin to position our bodies around the contemplation of death, we'll be able to see death as it's happening, right? And when I say that, particularly people who are sick, who are ill, the people that we love, will be able to see in our bodies and connect and see, you know what, my dear loved one is dying. And so now it's time for us to prepare, because their timeline is ending very soon, right? Their timeline here on earth in this body is ending very soon. And so for me, for example, as a little girl, I knew when people were dying. I can tell based on skin color, eye color, particularly with Black people, right? And so that helps us to begin to get settled so that we can be a supporter of death instead of having a trauma response in regards to death, in which we freeze, we fight, we fawn, we do those responses instead of being present of, okay, this is happening, right? And so, in a space where we can really bring our gifts forward at the time that our loved one is dying. And so there's this amazing book that talks about task of the living to prepare for death. And so one of the tasks, and again, this is about us settling, like supporting and alleviating that fear, right? As much as possible, right? So that we can be settled, so that we can support not only ourselves, but our families, right? We're all Black women on the call, so we gonna be support people, right? And so one of the things is finding meaning in life, right? So key questions, a task that we can all be working towards is, what has made your life worth living? What are the experiences of being in a body that you enjoy? What have you added to this rich fabric of humankind, no matter how big or small? And I'm gonna put these in the chat. How have you lived your life? So I'm gonna put some of these questions in here. Again, a task that you can begin to think about in preparation, but then also most importantly, settling your body and harmonizing with the contemplation of death, right? The next thing is heal your relationships. Ooh, y'all, this one is hard. This one hard for me. I had to, and I will say, I have every task that I'm sharing, I have done personally. And I had to do a lot of work on healing my relationship with my father. Because one of the questions that you put to yourself is like thinking about, you're on your deathbed, who is surrounding you? Who is choosing to be there? And what is the current relationship? And who's choosing not to be there, right? So let's get very clear on these relationships that we need to heal or mend so that we can move on, right? So I'm putting those questions in the chat for you to think about in regards to heal your relationships. Okay. All right. Who is surrounding you? Who is choosing to be there? What is your current state of relationship with the people that you want there? Who is choosing not to be there? That last question took me out. I'll be honest, right? I had to sit with myself, right? That the person choosing not to be there was my father. And so that was a moment where I had to have a conversation with him, right? About that, right? The next task is find meaning in suffering and ways to transcend suffering. So like really understanding like what gift is there in your suffering, and what ways do you alleviate anxiety? What processes do you use to help yourself accept and process present circumstances, right? Because that's going to be a real thing. 95% of us, statistically, we're going to die from an illness, a disease, right? Most of us die from a disease, right? And so understanding what that's going to be like is important to get very clear and conscious of now while you are healthy, right? To be very clear about that. And then the next one is build a personal relationship with death, right? And really what that is about is again, the contemplation is very helpful, but just what is your faith tradition? What is your spirituality? How do you think about death? What has been your experiences regarding death? What were you taught about death, right? And again, as you continue to revisit these tasks, those things will change, right? As you get older, right? Some of how you think about your relationship with death will change, right? And then the last one is make preparations. Make preparations, right? And what I mean by that is the paperwork. Hey, where's your password to all of your gadgets? Where's the information on your policy? All of that paperwork things. And then also your directives, like how do you want to be cared for when you are ill or become seriously injured, right? Do you do not resuscitate? Who do you want to handle your affairs? And again, with all 5 of these tasks, to begin to think about your own end of life planning, you should be talking with your loved ones. I know my husband is tired of me talking about death. I talk about it all the time in just a matter of fact way, a comfortable conversation. My 8-year-old, we have conversations about death. And she's already like giving things to us and saying, hey, if anything were to happen, I want you to have this to remember me. Not that she's trying to speed up death, but just being very clear that she wants us to know that if anything were to happen to her, that this is the thing she wants us to remember her by, right? So again, these tasks, right, you can begin to reflect by yourself on these questions. And then as you feel comfortable, begin sharing it with the people that love and care for you, right? So I want to stop there and just leave space for any questions or comments or thoughts about the task of living to prepare for death or the contemplation regarding death. So the floor is open.
I don't have any questions, but I do. I really like this is trying to say what you were talking about making preparations. I think that's one of the areas where we all seem to, not all, but that's where an area where we falter a lot in making preparations, from having health proxies to all of the paperwork stuff that seems very morbid. And I found, like, even talking with family members about it, it's really hard to get people to settle in on some of these things. Then you're left with, like, I'm sure many of you may have been through these situations when someone does pass and doesn't have those things in order, even a quilt or something, people can be fussing about it, so I think that even having your daughter say, like, hey, this is something I want you to remember me by, it's still something
Right.
good, because like, I'm giving you stuff now so that nobody has to fight about about this thing.
Real talk.
That happens.
Real talk. Right. But also trying to say another thing to also think about is we have a lot of stuff. Right. We got a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And so some of the things, like I'm looking at my desk now, some of the things that maybe my loved one may not know that it's important to me really is important. So, for example, I was gifted a number of traditional Ethiopian clothing when I was baptized in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It was a number of women. I have like 10 dresses that I never wear, but I want to gift those to my daughter. Who's going to know that I want that done? Right? Like, I want to give that to my daughter because it was given to me by Black women in faith. Right? And I told my husband that, and he was like, I would have never, again, we need to have conversations, not that we're trying to, us talking about death does not determine when we're going to die. Let me just say that, right? I don't know, your lifespan is finite. I don't know when that's going to happen, but the thing about it is, I think about, there's a concept called good death, right? There's a concept. And for me, for Black folks, I think that is justice. We deserve a good death. And so even if your loved one, right, don't want to talk about the paperwork, but let's have a conversation of a good death then. What does that mean to you? Right? Because mama or daddy or sister, we're going to die. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't want you to die. I love you, but let's have a conversation on good death, right? So for example, for me, I don't want to leave my stuff around for my family to try to figure out why they hurt and in pain, right? So I need to get my paperwork in order, right? That's just an example. But one way is to, if you're having problems having the conversation with people in your life, or you're having a hard time, start from what is a good death. One day I will die, right? Take a deep breath. One day I will die, and I want to have a good death. So what does that mean to me? And just journal and have a moment. Erica, thank you for sharing in the chat. The part you said about healing relationships resonated with me. This is something I was just talking about with someone. Yes. Okay. We have a couple more minutes. Anyone else want to share what's coming up for them in regards to the task of the living to prepare for death, or any contemplation around death?
I think it's a lot of this is Joy. I think it's a lot of, you talk about stuff, and I've seen my parents deal with their parents dying, and some of my great aunts and great uncles, and they have done well with, sharing the information, or at least telling me where the information is, because that's a big deal. Like, who do I go to? What do I do? Because of all of the, one thing that my grandmother did for my mom was she wrote down everything to what she wanted to wear, the hat, all of the stuff. Now whether they actually followed instructions, that ain't had nothing to do with her. But she was like, I'm not gonna leave this. And she had 7 kids. I don't want them fighting. I just needed to be write it down and make it plain.
Mhm.
I appreciated that. And my mother has tried to take the same stance, because it is a lot of emotion. It's a lot of dealing with it. We never know how it's going to happen. If it's going to happen at the same time, if you're going to have 2 or 3 deaths back to back to back, if you have to plan all of that, that will take you out. I have seen people age much more than they need to, because of, having to deal with loss of loved ones, and then the trying to continue on with life.
Right.
And we know that grief is not something that is like, you're going to do this for 30 days and you're going to move on. It's a whole process.
Everybody's different. Yeah.
If you
Right.
don't actually, if we have tools or traits or something that can help us get through the experience, or at least prepare for it, that's better. And I have a lot of stuff as I look at my office now, just my office, my clothes alone, like, it will take somebody out. They'll be like, just burn the house down, because it has so much stuff. Right?
Right.
But I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for making it very plain. It doesn't feel scary or spooky.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the thing of it is, again, just it just takes a moment. Literally, you could do 5 minutes of journal time and focus on one of these tasks. I'm just going to focus on make preparations for dying. And I will also say, like, there are a lot of free resources. If you're in Georgia, there is a group of Black women lawyers that annually every year help you with your will and advance directives for free. These are lawyers, right? So there are services out here. Feel free to reach out to me with questions you have. I typically have, some resources for every state, even templates for like advanced directives. And but again, even just looking at these 4 tasks and some of those questions to begin to go through and revisiting them helps to again alleviate the fear. But then also, as I shared, that contemplation around death is helpful. Yes, Black women will. They are amazing. Yep. And if you're in Georgia, you can file your will with probate for free, because they partner with a Black woman judge. So there are tons of resources. I didn't do a resource list here, but if there is anything specific, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put my email in the chat. And as we begin to close out. And so I always do a circle, triangle, square. And so that you can either share in the chat or you can come on the mic. So the first one is, what's circling around in your head? What are you wondering about? Again, you can type the letter C and answer the question. The next one is, what is something that was pointed out for you today? What aha moment did you have? You can, in the chat, write the letter T and respond to those questions. And then the last one is square. Sorry. What is something that squared with your thinking? What is something, I keep doing that. What is something that you would agree with? You would type the letter S and then share in the chat, or you may come on the mic. And I've also put my email address in the chat. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanisha. They are just amazing. I did it last year.
So,
Go ahead. Yes, Deborah.
so what's circling around in my head is when you said that prepare for suffering, because I didn't think about that.
Mm.
And then you said find meaning in suffering. Why?
That's
I
a
mean, I
great
can think about ways to transcend suffering. That I can figure out, but why do I have to find meaning in suffering? I mean, that's circling around my head. And that's also my, what was the first thing? A circle, and then there was a triangle and a square?
Yes.
Okay, so it's my circle and my triangle.
Okay. Okay. That was pointed out and circling. Yeah. That's something to really think about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, let me put my email in the chat. Here it is. There you go, Cassandra. All right. Anyone else have any circle, triangle, or squares? All right. If there are no other responses or questions, that's all I have for us today. I appreciate your openness and being on the call today. Joy, did you have anything you wanted to share before we close out?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today as we talk about, real things and things that are happening in our lives and our communities every day. This is what Sage Circle is about. We listen to everybody's voices and we try to share things that will encourage us and help us learn and grow together and thrive together. So thank you, Natasha, for your time today and your intentionality on this particular topic. Next month, we will have another Sage Circle. We do this every month, same time, same channel, on the fourth Thursday of the month at 1:00. So we hope that you will join us for that. Natasha, you can close it out. I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, so again, thank you all so very much. As you transition back into the day, I invite you to take some breaths and do a body scan before you go right back into work. Just have some space and a moment. And this was recorded, so it will be available so that you can go back if you want to look at the contemplation or any of the tasks and think about that. Yeah. And again, I put my email in the chat if you want to follow up with me.
Thank you, ladies. Have a beautiful day and a lovely weekend.
All right. Thank you, Joy.